Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Yeah, I've got you now.
Good on you, mate. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Tough gig for you. A real household name amongst those at the Thomson Footy Club. Took on the coaching job in conjunction with Jared Westwood this year. A lot of excitement through the pre-season. Whoops, nothing happened. How are you handling that?
It certainly has been an interesting induction into coaching. To start with, it was definitely challenging at times for myself and Jared. Obviously, we were trying to rebuild a list after we'd come off a pretty heartbreaking grand final loss at the back end of 2019 against Bannockburn. So there were some difficult times to begin with, but it all started to come together, and unfortunately this coronavirus has put everything on hold just as it started to get good. So I can't really tell you much besides that, but yeah, interesting start to the whole situation, that's for sure.
Sam, it's Neil here. You won't be able to blame a lack of preparation time. Anyway, you talk about the loss last year in 2019 and the rebuilding of a list. Have many players moved on, or have you chosen to move many players on? How's your list look compared with last year in terms of personnel?
Obviously, when Jared and I took it on, we knew there would be some people that would obviously choose to move on, but we took it on with the understanding that we'd be able to maintain majority of our list, which we've been able to do. And obviously we've added 5 or 6 blokes that we think can really come in and have an immediate impact on hopefully going one better this year.
So give us an indication of, apart from Reece Holwell, your courageous coach, Whitley medalist, and premiership coach the year before, that in a game that many thought you couldn't possibly have won. He's a clear inspiration on the ground. Huge loss there, but who else were you that you knew you wouldn't have?
Yeah, that CD Reece put together was definitely one to respect and admire across those years. Obviously, losing him, we've lost Brendan Wall. He's decided to head back to Rokewood for this year, if footy eventually comes around again. He said he kind of had a desire to head back there and finish off some unfinished business that he'd had previously. Jack Spokes was another one that we'd lost from our grand final team. His partner got a job teaching in Terang, so he'd moved back home. Luke Forbes is obviously retired, but off the top, and Matthew Baden, our premiership ruckman, has obviously retired as well. So those 4 or 5 blokes are the ones that we've lost from our senior ranks. Some pretty good names amongst them, but hopefully the blokes that we've brought in can certainly step up and fill those shoes as well.
Did you work really hard in recruiting once you knew these players were going to recruit like for like, or have the new players come in suggest there might be a slightly different look about the way you play?
We've kind of tried to inject a little bit more pace. Obviously this off-season, we were probably a little bit slower last year at moving the footy, so that was probably our first thing that we probably desired to do. But of course, obviously, if you can replace like for like, it makes it pretty simple, pretty similar to the team that went before. So that was our initial one. But a lot of these blokes were kind of in limbo, sitting there wondering what they were going to do, if they're going to play again or not. So we kind of went with that mantra of we wanted to get some speed and some pace into the game. Into our game plan as well, and we kind of went from there. So that was the plan to begin with, but obviously once those names started to kind of come to the furore that they were leaving, we kind of thought, well, we need a ruckman. We kind of identified that we needed a quick winger as well. So yeah, those things kind of fit in, and that was why we went with what we did.
Just tell us about the coaching idea. Was it something that was a passion within you to get going? Was it a quiet conversation that you and Jared had, or did the club come to you and put the offer to you?
It was a bit of an interesting one, to be honest. We, just like I said with those players that left, we were kind of in limbo up until post-grand final when we heard that Reece and Squiz weren't obviously going around again, which left us in a little bit of a quick decision-making situation. We kind of had to make a decision really quickly. I'd kind of flirted the idea with Jared throughout the back end of the year, and then when the decision was made by Reece and Squiz, we kind of sat down for a dinner in Torquay, and I kind of put it to him, and Jared said, I'd consider doing it, but I'd need to do it with someone else. And that's when I kind of put my hand up and said, well, you know, I've had a couple of years' experience in captaining. Maybe I could take that step up and do it with Jared, and we kind of decided to form that team there, and yeah, the rest is history, as they say.
You've worked recently under the Taylor-Holwell combination. It clearly was good because Reece was on the ground doing what he does best, and Squiz off the ground having that view. How have you worked through with Jared, how, when this finally gets going again, how you'll manage the balance when you're both going to be on the ground?
Teaming up with Jared's been it's been really, really good. He's always kind of pushed on me that my first priority on a Saturday is to be a player, and he knows the impact that can have on some playing coaches. So to be given that freedom and that understanding from the outset was always reassuring for myself. But we've got some pretty good bench coaches that we've gone out and scouted and identified as a key important fact to us on a Saturday. Jared, obviously getting on in his age, knows that he's not going to be playing every game as well, so he'll be able to coach from the sidelines, depending on when we start, a few times throughout the year, and obviously with a shortened season that might be less and less. But his ideal is that I'm focused on being a player on a Saturday, do all the pre-game stuff as a coach, and then he takes it over from there once the first siren rings, and we've got Jason Stein, who's a familiar name around the Thomson Footy Club, as jumping on as our bench coach, and a returning coach in Stephen McLeod. He'll be running our opposition analysis and bench coaching as well. So we've identified a few key roles that we needed to fill, and thankfully there were some pretty good names around that were putting their hands up and saying they're happy to jump on board with us.
Does it change the way you play the game? Now that you've got the extra C next to your name, does that mean that you play a different role out on the ground, or do you purely and simply come out as you used to when you was captain? Does it change what you do during the 120 minutes of a game?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, it certainly has had an impact at training. I've noticed that straight away, and I've had a few conversations with Andrew Hodgson and John O'Casey, who had previously done it at Queenscliff as playing coaches. I think in the one hit out I've had with our pre-season game that we went ahead with, it certainly did change the way I viewed the game. You know, I was a little bit more sceptical and a little bit more analytical in things, and thinking about footy a lot more than probably what I would have done in the past. I certainly think it has an impact to a degree, but the more I can block that out and focus on, you know, my role within the team, and obviously that backline role that I play amongst that team within a team, that's probably where my focus needs to be. But of course, there's going to be reflection and, you know, analysis that's happening mid-game when I'm thinking about things, but hopefully I can push that to one side and focus on what the important thing is, and, you know, getting the footy and you know, supplying my teammates with a lot of footy and making sure we're doing all the right things on the ground as a team before I worry about the coaching aspect of it.
Because I think if you look at some of the successful coaches in the AFL, and I go back as far as, you know, your Tommy Hafeys, that sort of time, many of them played out of the back pocket and had that back line. You know, you look at Chris Scott, Brad Scott, these guys that have played off the back line, Damien Hardwick, these guys, I think you're in a sort of good position to be from the back line to see what's going on up the ground and make that analysis a little easier.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to my dad about it a couple of years ago, and he always said, you know, wicket keepers in cricket were always good captains because they were in the best position to see the whole game and make decisions. I mean, that probably flows into footy a little bit. Being a backman, you probably see it holistically as a backman. You're focused on your role, but you're seeing the whole ground in front of you. And I think it is a good position to set yourself up from as a captain or a coach to view the game and be able to analyse mid-game and think about things that are working and things that aren't working. I mean, I'm always a pretty vocal player and always pretty open with my communication anyway, as it is through the back line. I mean, I've had one of the best people doing that next to me in Adam Wiseman for the last couple of years, and he's taught me, how to direct play and view things and think about things. So, I mean, it is another step up, but it's probably a good position to be doing it from in the back line.
And I guess the closest we've had to a captain coach in the AFL in recent times has been Luke Hodge, who's been the man who has sort of redefined that role, hasn't he? Playing across there, both at Hawthorn and at Brisbane, being a player who brings experience, but also has the formal role in a coaching capacity.
Yeah, I mean, when Hodgie did it, obviously at Hawthorn, he was captaining and being able to direct things from there. But obviously going to Brisbane, we saw the impact that he had in the last couple of years. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was part of the coaching panel,
yep,
or progressing into that.
He was not officially part of the leadership team, but he was officially a mentor and part of the coaching panel, as he is this year.
Yeah, so obviously that, sets him up, and he's a great communicator and a great reader of the footy, and puts himself in a good position. I mean, there's plenty of cases across, AFL and, representative footy and even local footy where you've got some of the better players playing across that half-back line, being able to influence the game and make decisions and make changes. I mean, I think of, Corey Enright or Nick Maxwell, or, Nick Maxwell was very well known for his direction and his authority and stuff like that. So he was probably an early day one for me. And I remember talking to Greg McLeod, and he was one that said, sit back and watch Nick Maxwell. He's the one to watch. He's, the commander, is a general and a bit of the quarterback from that half-back line. So, yeah, the opportunity is certainly large to be able to influence the game from there. So it's not a bad position to start from.
Sam, you are, I think, the 8th Geelong and District Football League coach we interviewed over the pre-season and up to today, and the consistent thing that come out of all of them is that they're well aware that this competition has improved enormously, and the pressure coming from the sides that didn't perform in finals last year but are going to be pushing for it this year means that you're not going to have too many days where you're going to get an easy game. So I guess as a group you've got to be well aware of that the old days of a top 4 or 5 and a bottom 6 or 8, they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, obviously through my 10 years of playing GDFL footy, I've seen the standard certainly improve. Specifically within the last 5 years, the last 3 years, there's been some really big names come into the league, and yeah, I think those days are certainly gone of those top 2 or 3 teams just dominating and having a stronghold on the competition. Last year was a very open competition, and we spoke about, I remember Neville Whitley speaking about that at the season launch and saying it was probably the best position the league had been in a few years to have some consistency and, have open competition. And I only think that's only going to get better this year. And I think the shortened season plays into that as well. People are going to come back pretty hungry, and, those teams that may or may not have been a little bit off the pace, the gap might have closed a little bit more this year again. So I think it will be a pretty open season, and I think on any day any team can beat anyone, which is a good league to play. And you don't want to be at the mercy of those top 2 or 3 teams, and that's only for them to win. But I mean, it's a good position for the league to be in, and I mean the standard has done nothing but increase over the last 6 or 7 years.
Sam, we're just coming to the end of our time with you, but quickly, I guess social media, the obvious one, but you're keeping in touch with your players and making sure that they're concentrating on a fitness regime?
Yeah, I mean, just probably like every club, whether it be AFL or local, we've all kind of got the group chats going on, whether it's WhatsApp or a Facebook Messenger group. We set one of those up, and we've kind of set it as self-accountability this time round. We haven't really set any specific goals or targets for people to be achieving. We're pretty high on self-accountability this year, and, guys have been really good with that. We've been following along, and some guys are posting some pretty stupendous times when it comes to their 5K runs or their 4K runs that they're doing. But, the amount of work that blokes are doing on their own is it's really, really, really good to see. So, we've got guys that are running. We've got a bit of a 20-minute 5K time trial challenge going at the moment, and some blokes are, getting down into the 18-minute mark of running some pretty quick times. So everyone's kind of taking it as it is, but yeah, we haven't said anything specific. It's just more or less up to people to do their own thing. And, as much as we love footy and we enjoy footy, right now is a bit of a time to kind of reset, I think, and get yourself mentally as right as you can physically as well. But, spend time with your families and, ticking boxes for footy is probably the last worry on some people's minds at the moment. So we've left it up to everyone to individually kind of run their own show on that front. And we're a senior list, so blokes are willing to put the work in because they know what's expected.
Good on you, mate. Hopefully the season does get away. We look forward to seeing you in action in your new role. You've certainly been a great player for the comp, and it'll be nice to see how you can blend the two. I really appreciate your time this morning. We'll keep in touch. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks so much, guys. Happy Easter and stay safe.